Good afternoon. I'm Chris Scher, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers, and the co-host of this month's episode of the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting, usually held on the third Monday of the month, but thanks to the federal holiday yesterday, we delayed it one day. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals with nearly 5,000 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. The host of today's SBE WEBxtra is SBE Treasurer and Social Networking Committee Chair Kevin Trueblood. Hey, Kevin.
Chris, Happy New Year. It's good to see you and from sunny Florida and cold Kansas City. Hope things are going well for you.
Not quite so cold today. We're in the 40s. That's comfy. It's still shorts weather to me.
I'll give you that one. That actually sounds pretty great. And I'm excited to talk today about the connected the platform, the connected audio, what you see in your cars these days. And I'll admit that this is kind of top of mind for me because I've got a 22 Kia Telluride that I just did a software update for, and all of a sudden unlocked a ton of features, which turns out is behind the company DTS, which is a platform called DTS AutoStage, which happens to be a product of the company Xperi, which you might know from HD Radio. So we're going to be talking to Joe D'Angelo from Xperi, who helped develop the platform and helps administer it in current model cars. It's out there in the wild. So we're going to dive into what it does, what it looks like, and how stations can kind of take advantage of it for the best experience for the listeners. So we're going to dive into that in just a couple of minutes. But Chris, you got some business to take care of first.
Yes, I do. I have your SBE member update for January 17th, 2023. The next webinars by SBE on the calendar will be presented live on January 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's called Real-Time Media in a Cloud-Native World. With the push for broadcasters to move everything to the cloud, everyone seems to have some kind of workflows moving there. This webinar will look at the different types of the cloud, application types of cloud, and solutions, or lack thereof, for real-time media to get an understanding of the cloud ecosystem and how it affects broadcast. The instructor is Chris Lapp, Technical Solutions Architect at Media and Entertainment. And we're just about to add another webinar to the calendar in January this month as well. I'm told it's Shane Toven will provide a review of the recent Consumer Electronics Show. As we look to February 16th, testing, measurement, and monitoring for ATSC 3.0 broadcasting systems will focus on the testing, measurement, and monitoring of ATSC 3.0 broadcast. It'll provide a brief overview of the IP and RF signal parameters and discuss the when, where, and how of testing, measurement, and monitoring of signal elements. The instructors are John B. Casey, CTO and co-founder of Airwaves TV, and Jay Adrick, a consultant with Cavell Mertz & Associates. Also, you can always access the entire library of webinars by SBE presentations on demand. For information on these and all the webinars, go to sbe.org/webinars. Beginning January 1st, SBE Member Plus, the membership enhancement that allows unlimited access to all the webinars by SBE, will add another benefit, access to all the SBE University courses currently available. SBE University courses are multi-part programs on a variety of topics. You can take the classes as your time permits. If you hold SBE Member Plus, there's nothing to do. The benefit was activated on January 1st. For more information on SBE University, go to sbe.org/education/SBE-University. The 2023 NAB show may be 3 months away, but the time to plan your trip is now. The SBE is making its NAB show plans, and this includes a 2-day SBE Ennis workshop to be held April 14th and 15th at the Westgate Resort. The NAB show exhibit floor opens on April 16, so plan to arrive early. There will be 2 separate educational tracks, one on ATSC 3.0 and the other on RF. You'll need to register to attend the SBE Ennis workshop at the 2023 NAB show. The registration page will be launched any day. I think I just got the link, in fact, just before we got on air. So hopefully I can post that this afternoon. The SBE will also offer a special exam opportunity to take the SBE ATSC 3 Certification Specialist exam in Las Vegas after the Ennis workshop. So watch for more details on the SBE website under News and Headlines and on all the familiar SBE communication channels. And speaking of certification, the next SBE certification exam window at local chapters is in February. The application deadline for that exam is passed, so if you want to submit for the next one, that exam window is in June. The application date for those exams is April 21st. And if you don't want to wait, or if a local chapter exam is not convenient for you, or it's not possible, private proctoring is available. More information on SBE certification is online at sbe.org/certification. And there are 2 surveys posted from the SBE. We appreciate your input. One survey seeks information about disability access for SBE members, and the other takes the opening steps of our strategic planning efforts. Both are available right now. The quickest link to each is on the SBE homepage. There's a pop-up box that'll appear when you go to sbe.org. There are also links in the October and December issues of The Signal. And that's your SBE member update for January 17th, 2023.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. It's great to have you along, and great to have you, the viewer, here today, learning about the experience in the cars. And as we know that the car is one of the places that radio still has a huge listenership. And one of the things that a lot of owners and stations are doing these days is making sure that they're now playing info, and what they're sending out to the listeners is, well, good looking and consistent. And that's why our guest, Joe D'Angelo, is here. He's from Xperi and helped develop a platform called AutoStage from DTS that basically helps do just that, that basically provides a more consistent experience. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we got to that. And before we really dive into it, I do want to remind you that there is a little comment section here, if you're watching us on YouTube, that you can ask questions and provide comments, and we'll try and work those in as we go through the presentation. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us out there on the West Coast.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, and hopefully we'll have a nice, vibrant conversation about the future of radio in the car.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. As I said, for me, it was kind of a surprise because this is the first time I've ever had to do a software update in my car. And I did it myself with a thumb drive right after Christmas. It took about a half hour, and the whole thing, actually went through its motions and did its upload. And all of a sudden, a whole new platform unveiled that really kind of took me back, because I had heard about AutoStage and I saw the demonstration at NAB last year. And I knew it was in
hmm
Mercedes, but I knew it hadn't made it yet to Kias and Hyundais. So I know there's more plans for that to be rolled out in the future, but I want to kind of start from the beginning, where I know there's a lot of different standards when it comes to what different manufacturers show, what fields, because some show PSD, some show radio text, some show DPS. So I guess since you guys are so involved in this space, what kind of feedback are you hearing from auto manufacturers as far as what they want to do, and what feedback they're getting from their drivers that
hmm
the drivers are wanting?
Yeah, I think it can be summed up in one word: really consistency. I think as car companies have been deploying technologies around the world, digital technologies like Apple Music and Amazon Music, Spotify, etc. The one benefit that they're seeing from those platforms is consistency of content delivery and presentation of content choice. And when you look at radio, where radio has really evolved and advanced quite a bit over the last 10 years with, you know, DAB in Europe, HD radio here in the States, and Canada, Mexico, and even CDR, the Converged Digital Radio Standard in China. Um, while they've advanced, they've also diverged. So it's made it much harder for car companies to have a consistent global implementation of radio. And it was really that evolution, along with the evolution of connectivity in the car, that drove us to develop the AutoStage platform to try to help solve that issue for broadcasters, for automakers, and most importantly, for consumers of radio.
So that's kind of where DTS came in, was to help fill in that gap, as it were, because I understand what you're saying, because when I've talked to some of the representatives from dealerships, they hear a lot of feedback at the dealerships themselves that the broadcasters don't hear, because like, oh, this feature doesn't work right, or the display doesn't work
Mhm.
correctly, or something like that. So I'm curious where DTS kind of stepped into get involved in this space, and how much interest is there amongst the manufacturers to create a standard?
Well, let me give you maybe a little history of Xperi and the role we've played kind of between um, broadcast and automotive. With the HD radio system, we obviously introduced a standard. We introduced a whole host of features to enhance broadcast radio, like artist experience, for example. And we work with radio stations to ensure that that feature is implemented correctly over the air. And we certify the receiver integration in the cars. So we de-risk the platform for the car companies. Um, and when something does go wrong, which has happened over the last 20 years of HD radio, we play a very active role between the car companies and the broadcasters trying to diagnose where the issue has originated and um, work to resolve it, whether it's a software issue or a broadcast services issue. Um, we play a very similar role with AutoStage, but what is unique about AutoStage is it is a service. At its core, it's a metadata service that we curate and monitor 24/7, 365. So every piece of content about a radio station that flows through AutoStage is monitored by a technical support team, an editorial content team, to ensure that when it is delivered to the vehicle, it is accurate, it is consistent, and it is delivered in a timely fashion. So we play a very, very active role in managing the service for over 85,000 radio stations around the world.
And to be clear, one of the differences, and I want Suncast, if you can bring up one of the pictures that I submitted that just shows one of the radio stations here. I wanted to highlight this one. For example, this particular station doesn't transmit in HD. This is actually one of my contract
Mhm.
stations that only transmits the artist title data over RDS, is not currently in HD,
Right,
but displays the album art for the song that is currently on the air. And it will also display
right.
the data that's transmitted on the RBDS, but you're kind of adding that value in. So as you said, it kind of provides a more consistent experience. So just kind of before we go much further, I wanted everybody to kind of see what this looks like. This is from my car here in Southwest Florida with an actual broadcast station not transmitting HD. And this is pretty true for most of the stations in the area, whether they transmit HD or not, because already with that standard, you can with the HD data, if you're running the newest generation, you can send album art, you can send different logos to the radio.
Mm,
But this is for a non HD station, and that's why I wanted to highlight that before we
right.
got too much further.
Yeah, that's a great example of kind of the value add that Xperi brings to broadcasters, car companies, and consumers, where in that case, we are using our TiVo music metadata catalog um, to deliver that album art. We have deals with all the record labels, with all the music publishers to actually curate link imagery and metadata to broadcast audio services and deliver that on behalf of the industry as part of our service obligation to the car companies. And we're one of only two companies that are licensed globally to deliver album art into the car. And we're the only one that are doing it on behalf of broadcasters.
So I know you brought some slides, and we can go ahead and bring up those slides. You brought a presentation
All
for
right.
the class. Certainly appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And
So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and get
and I'm
started on
happy.
presentation.
Sure, and I'm happy to do this. We could jump in, interrupt with questions at any point in time. But if we could go to the next slide, I'll just jump into this and move through this pretty quickly. So, for those of you who don't know Xperi, we have a broad range of broadcast technologies and have services across home, mobile, and in the car. And what I've listed here are just some of the brands and features and services that we offer that really intersect between broadcast radio and the car. We have the DTS uh, family of services, which include, our legacy surround sound technologies, as well as now DTS AutoStage. We have HD radio. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. TiVo, you may know them for their DVR technology, but since we merged with them a couple years ago, we fully integrated the music metadata catalog. Many of you on this call probably license this for use in your apps and web services. And then we have a division in London called All In Media that is one of the world's largest radio app developers. We supply apps to about 6,000 radio stations around the world. And that division also has developed a broadcast metadata platform called Rapid, which was launched in the US at last year's NAB and actually won Best in Show. So it's a lot of technology, all designed to help radio compete in the car and on other platforms into the future. So if we go to the next slide, we have a very long history, over 20 years, of supplying technology, broadcast technology, specifically into the automotive industry. These are just some key stats. I was shocked to see we're actually over 100 million cars on the road now with either HD radio and or DTS audio, as well as DTS AutoStage. So we are firmly entrenched in the auto industry and are rolling out more and more platforms every year, working with the complete supply chain. So we are a very trusted partner. We are certified in all of the different OEM engineering requirements, and we have ISO 9001, for example, and we also certify all of our integrations, which makes us very unique in that we take that extra step to work with the supply chain to ensure that everything is implemented correctly. So go to the next slide, please. And so this is a picture I took recently when I was in London in November at the BBC doing a similar session on AutoStage once we had executed our agreement with the BBC. We brought a Mercedes there, and I think that's a Polestar behind it, to demonstrate to the BBC management and executive team what this looks like. So I have some screenshots to show you what it looks like in a Mercedes. So we go to the next slide, please. Here you see how AutoStage really helps with discovery of radio. There are two views that we display in Mercedes. There's a carousel of content you see over on the left, and on the right you see the listing of favorites. And what's really unique about this implementation is every radio station, whether it's on analog or DAB, is equally represented in the display with rich metadata, rich visuals, and consistent information. This really gives radio, broadcast radio, the look and feel of a traditional digital media platform. Let's go to the next slide, please. There is great branding opportunities. You see this BBC Radio 1 logo. It's a huge image that we actually augment the DAB broadcast in this case and deliver it over the IP connection. We do a similar function in the US for both HD radio and analog radio stations. And I mentioned the rich album art that we are licensed to distribute on behalf of radio stations. Here you see a great rich image on the right side. Let's go to the next slide, please. And this is where it really gets interesting, where we're really starting to compete and offer services really akin to what Spotify has done. You see the Kate Bush album art in the carousel, the rich information about what's playing. But we also are the only company licensed for the automotive distribution of song lyrics. We worked with all the music publishers around the world to get rights to push album art from the record labels, song lyrics from the publishers. And here you see the lyrics for the song displayed on the screen. And you could be saying, well, that's an odd service. But as cars move more and more towards autonomy, which, believe it or not, cars have now been certified in Germany to drive on the Autobahn next year in a fully autonomous mode. So these types of engaging media enhancements are coming. And at CES, we actually announced that Xperi has been awarded its first in-vehicle video platform as well. So AutoStage is not only for radio, it's also for video and on-demand audio services. So very exciting extension of features. If I think we can move to the next slide, we're going to see different implementations. So here you see the, I believe this is David Lair's electric vehicle, where you can see the rich station list for FM. This is in a Hyundai vehicle. And go to the next slide, which I particularly like this one because it's showing a rich discovery platform for AM radio as well. I think this is revolutionary. This is, sorry, question?
No. I was going to say, I'm glad you pointed that out because I failed to mention earlier that this is definitely also on AM as well. This isn't just an FM product, but when you flip over to an AM station, it's also showing the logo and the information for the AM station. So it really is, blending the two. So you're not noticing a huge difference between the two bands in terms of the on-screen display.
Right, right. And what's this worked very well with AM HD radio, especially the all digital AM HD radio system where you've got the rich fidelity, but it works just as well with analog radio stations. So let's move to the next slide. So how do we do all this? We basically, at the key, the most critical function is to understand and to centralize now playing information from radio stations. And we do this through a variety of techniques. We have a tiered content aggregation strategy where we start with publicly available sources of information about radio stations and about what they're playing. We work with certain select platform partners who have information about what radio stations are actually broadcasting over the air at any point in time. But the best integrations are those that we do directly with the radio stations. This puts the radio station in control of their content. It ensures editorial accuracy and the lowest latency. And again, this entire platform and the ability to integrate with us is completely free. We have, I'll show you at the end of the session, there's a link where you can register, and stations large and small. I mean, I've listed some of the biggest brands here, but we have very small, independent, mom and pop shops that are also integrating with us. And you can see as we get the station information, we enhance it with our TiVo metadata, and you can see the premium content curation is our album art and song lyrics. And what we do then is we deliver this over a standard API into cars, literally around the world. We're live in 148 countries now and are delivering billions of interactions around radio. So let's go to the next slide if there are no questions. What you see here is a representation of the footprint of our current user base, for lack of a better term. The green dots you're seeing, these polygons that are populating the world map, all represent the density of vehicles that are connecting to our system while listening to broadcast radio and requesting information about the station that they're currently tuned to. And you can see as of, I think this data was probably 3 months or 30 days old. We had delivered over close to 4.5 billion different pieces of information to vehicles around the world, listening to all kinds of radio stations. And you can see in the table there, the concentration of engagement by country. And what's important to note here is that these data points provide the foundation for our analytics and metrics, where we're then able to tell you as a broadcaster how many vehicles were listening to your station during which audio events and for how long. It's really the foundation of what I believe is one of the most significant value adds of this platform for the industry directly, not to mention what the consumers are experiencing. So let's go to
Now,
the next slide.
this
Yep, go
information is
ahead.
going to be available for the broadcasters. I'm assuming there will be a cost associated with that at some point.
No, this information. So we designed this entire platform to ensure broadcasters retain editorial control of the content and provide and gain access to consumption. So everything that we're delivering to the broadcasters that you'll see on the later slides is free of charge. If you integrate with us and you allow us to provide this service on your behalf, we will deliver these analytics and metrics to you at no charge.
That's
So if we can
fascinating.
go, yeah, no, it's great, and we think it's a reasonable value exchange. We do monetize this platform. We license access to the API and the catalog of content to the auto industry. It's a very similar model to the HD radio model, where we make a couple dollars for each car, but because this is a global platform and they're selling, 70 million cars a year around the world, it's a very, very viable business for us. And we are solving a real problem for the auto industry. As I mentioned, radio is the most listened to medium in the car, pretty much around the world, and the fragmentation of radio makes it very difficult for the car companies to innovate and provide a consistent user experience, and we're solving that problem for them.
So I'm
So
already
let's go
getting
to
a
the next slide.
question.
Okay,
Yeah, real quick
go ahead.
from Brian on YouTube, who's asking about the direct station integration. So, how the affiliated music licensing works and the direct station integration? I don't know. You might be covering that soon, but that's the question.
No, it's an interesting question. I want to make sure that everyone understands what we're doing is this is not a streaming service. We are not taking your audio content and delivering over an IP connection to the car. What we are doing is taking the descriptive information about what you are playing and adding that to the broadcast audio in the vehicle. So this system and the architecture has nothing to do with music license rights. The metadata that we are delivering on your behalf, for example, the album art, we are fully licensed for that. And we have covered that in our deals with Universal and Sony and Warner and all the record labels. We have permission and an economic relationship with the labels to distribute the copyrighted album art and the music, the lyrics from the music publishers.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So let's go back to the deck, and I'll just plow through a couple other screens. What's interesting, I mentioned that 4.3 billion number is the foundation that drives all of the analytics and metrics. Well, we're projecting that number is going to grow to over 93 billion in 2023. And the next slide will show you how we're getting there. So if we can advance one
What is
more.
what is a tuning event? Is that where somebody punches up a station? So if they tune to a station and then leave and come back, that's two tuning events to one station. Is that how that's measured?
No, it's actually a little more granular than that. The tuning event itself is actually counts as, yes, one event. But as you are continue to listen to a station and the programming changes, and you go from song A to song B, and you indicate to us that you have changed programming, that there's a new event, whether it's a commercial or a song or a different segment of a talk show. Anytime a radio station tells us that the audio has changed and there should be new metadata associated with it, we deliver that metadata on your behalf, and that's a measurement point for us. So what happens is the car is basically pinging our service saying, do you have anything new to tell me about this radio station? And if the radio station tells us, yes, there's something new that's changed, we'll then deliver it. And that act of delivering it allows us to measure the traffic over the API. And without getting into too much detail at this point, that's how we maintain all of our GDPR and California privacy requirements. This is fully privacy compliant, and everything we're doing right now is available to share with broadcasters. So in terms of the growth, we started with Mercedes actually in 2020 on one vehicle platform, a $150,000 S-Class, so not a very high volume platform. We moved into the EQS and the C-Class around the world, adding more vehicle brands or models. And then in November of this year, we launched with Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, and a large US-based EV manufacturer who we are unfortunately not allowed to name publicly, but I'm sure you can figure it out if you just looked at a couple LinkedIn profiles. And with the expansion into those 5 brands, that added 49 new vehicle models. And what was most interesting to us is Mercedes was launched as a new vehicle integration, factory installed. That's the only way you could get the AutoStage platform in Mercedes. The 4 new brands that launched all did it both in factory and existing vehicle upgrades. So whether you do it yourself or you take the car into the dealership for an oil change, you will get AutoStage. And what's very exciting is we have 7 more brands that will launch this year into early next year. So we expect to be in well over 150 models by the end of this year. And that is just going to explode the amount of engagements and the measurement points and really the impact of the service on the industry as a whole. So let's go to the next slide real quick. So how does a broadcaster get involved in this? There is a registration page. There's a link at the end of this, and you will get access to a dashboard. It's our DTS broadcaster dashboard, AutoStage dashboard, that allows you to control all of your radio stations, not only the metadata that's being delivered, but you'll also start to see the analytics. What I'm showing you here is a snapshot of Cumulus's dashboard. You can see Pierre Bouvard's image. In this case, he's the user. You see a handful of their stations. All the way on the right side, you see what's actually now playing on all those stations and what we are delivering on their behalf into the vehicles. And in the middle column is a configurable measurement option that the radio station could basically select from a variety of data points to put on this dashboard. In this case, we've used weekly reach change. So we're showing, how these stations have performed week over week. And what's in that column is really at the discretion of the user. You can set up multiple users within your organization who can have their own customized dashboards, and you can also set permissions. So you may have a super user who can see and manage all your stations, and you may have a local station manager who can only see maybe 1 or 2 stations. Let's go to the next slide. We also use this data to create heat maps for the radio stations within their markets. So in this case, this is a Cumulus radio station in Syracuse, New York, and you can basically see where the audience is actually listening. In this case, if you look at the bottom slider in the image, it says entire day. So this is where the audience was for the entire day, but you can actually go into hour by hour and see how the audience is moving through the market, moving around potentially your advertisers, and really get a sense of where your listening is concentrated in your local markets. Again, this is only in car, but this is across all of the car brands that we are working with. Go to the
I
next
think
slide.
that's blowing my mind, by the way.
Say
Now,
again.
that's blowing my mind, being able to track where those people are. Now, I have a couple of questions about that, just looking at that.
Sure.
First off, I'm
Yep.
guessing any and all data is anonymous. You said it complies with the privacy requirements and whatnot. So you're not
Yes.
able to, you're like, oh, that's Susie Collins down there in Syracuse. I know what you're listening to. Everything is
No.
100% private.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the granularity of detail we get from the car companies varies. Some give us more data than others, but what we are then legally allowed to present to the broadcaster is kind of um, I forget the term we use for it, but basically it's an aggregated view of all the vehicles. We don't break it down by brands um, yet. We are working on technology to allow the driver to actually opt in to different levels of service in exchange for different use rights to their data, just like every other platform does around the world. But I want to make sure to manage expectations. We're not there yet. We are developing and have demonstrated this, what we call our personalization and recommendation service around audio, where we actually recommend radio stations, recommend podcasts, recommend additional content from radio stations to a driver. That will require a certain level of deeper understanding of the user's listening habits and experiences. And as we move into that world, we will get more permission to share a different level of data with the industry, but that's not going to come probably until 24.
Now, coming from the engineering perspective, the question was just asked, can you tell signal strength? And I'm willing to bet somewhere buried in that data, you probably could. But what's probably more likely is if you're, say, at low power or something, you'd probably see your map shrink from one day to the next based on a reduced signal. Uh, can you
Hmm.
get that kind of granular data? Does it? I'm assuming it works with the
Yeah.
GPS antennas.
Yeah, so the first thing the car does is give us the GPS coordinates. I think only to like 3 or 4 decimal points, not the precision you get from a cell phone. We use that to create a polygon of um, reception profile for the vehicle. We actually, because we certify most of these cars in for HD radio, we know the performance characteristics of the vehicles, and that becomes important in a minute. But we use that polygon to deliver that now playing list. But then the radio will also scan in the background to confirm the information that we've provided to it. So that provides a foundational reception, or the foundational catalog of listenable stations. When you're actually listening to a station, we also support something called service following, which I'm sure everyone's aware of, where you actually can switch from the over-the-air broadcast signal to the stream of the radio station. Again, that's at the discretion of the broadcaster. If they want to enable that, they deliver the stream to us in the dashboard. If they don't want to enable it, it's at their discretion. They can opt out of that feature. But when we make the decision to hand off to the stream is very much based on our receiver design experience and our ability to characterize reception performance for both HD radio and analog radio. And we do that in a very elegant way in collaboration with the tier one manufacturer, to ensure that we actually minimize the amount of time any vehicle would be dependent on the stream to maintain that listening experience, primarily because when you do switch, that's when you start to incur your content licensing costs with Sound Exchange. And we want to make sure that you only use the stream when it's absolutely necessary and the over-the-air signal is not listenable.
Well, I guess that then lends to the question of these aren't going to be geo-fenced. So if I'm listening to, say, my station here in Fort Myers, and I drive up to Tampa and I leave the confines of my station, I could continue to listen to that same station as long as I wanted to.
During a listening session that originated in your home market. So we don't, for example, we don't allow you to discover radio stations outside of your market. If you remember how that list was populated, you've seen it yourself in your car. It starts with local radio. And if you have initiated an over-the-air listening session, driving out of market, yes, will allow you to continue to listen. Once you turn that car off in Tampa, turn the car on again, your list of available signals will be the local Tampa market over-the-air signals. The only exception to that, and this is not really implemented in all vehicles right now, is if you have a preset. If you have a preset in Fort Myers, you drive to Tampa, you select that preset again in Tampa, some vehicles will allow you to initiate the stream, but you're kind of a P1 of that station, and the initial, discovery and engagement happened in the local market. So, it's very unlikely you're going to, drive to New York, set 15 presets, and then drive to Florida to listen to them. So that's where we're trying to manage really the value of that listener to the broadcaster, but yet not compete with a broadcaster's app strategy or any other pure digital platform. We're not trying to recreate that.
And you said that station list will update. So as I'm basically, it almost replaces like the seek button, as it were. As if I drive up to Tampa, for example, once I get up there, I can hit the search list instead of hitting scan, and then it'll show me all the existing stations. And I've seen with the logos propagated and the little icons and everything too, that'll populate in those markets as well as I drive.
Yeah, and what's really great about it, there's one of the benefits of digital radio, of HD radio, is this proliferation of choice. We've seen, New York go from about 45 FM stations to well over 100. And if you think about the modern consumer discovery behavior, it's not, incrementing frequency by frequency, listening, and then deciding what they want to listen to. They want to be presented with a list of content choices, select from that list, and go directly into what they want to listen to. We're enabling that. That list of stations that you've seen is, you can search that list. You can view that list by genres, by content types. So we're really modernizing the radio discovery experience. And so the seek button, where you would literally just have to spend 10 minutes going up and down the dial, has been replaced now by a rich, living program list.
And they could actually see a preview of what's on the air before they even tune to it. So is that how that can work, where they can actually see now playing information? They go, "Ooh, Katy Perry, I want to listen to that song," and boink, there they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some of the implementations where you see the station information, down below the station information will be the song or the program that's playing on that station. And, if metadata is the key to all of this. I mean, I use this analogy all the time. We all got super excited when Alexa came into the home and we could speak to it and it could find stuff, whether it's toilet paper or, a radio station. The reason that works is because of the completeness and consistency of the underlying metadata behind that discovery platform. We're doing the same thing now for radio in the car, where radio is discoverable in a modern means. And what you're seeing now, in most cases, is a visual representation of this, but AutoStage also drives voice interfaces across all these vehicles. So you can speak to the radio and say, find me country music, find me news, find me a specific radio station. And because the car is informed about what's available in a consistent, structured way, it can return those choices to you locally in the vehicle. It's extremely powerful technology.
Well, I want to let you finish a couple more slides because I've got
Okay,
I want to into more about what stations can do to kind of control this. So let's go through a couple more of those slides that you've
sure.
got.
Great. So this, I think, is the final preview on the analytics side where you can see a single station, again, a cumulus station here, and some of the data that we would present on the station's performance on a certain day. And what's really great about this platform is it's evolving, and we're working with the industry to refine what we're exposing and how exposing it. We want to make this tool as useful as possible to GSMs, to program directors, to management, you name it. And we will, to the extent we can, present any and all data to the radio station to help them make um, sales and attribution more compelling and make programming decisions um, based on real engagements with the audience. So go to the next slide, please. And that's it. That's the link on how you can basically register with the service if you all haven't already. This will take you to a page where you set up an account. You can see our data use agreement. You execute. It's a very simple 2.5-page data use agreement. It indicates what data we need, how we're going to use the data, the fact that we're going to return analytics and metrics to you at no charge. It kind of codifies the relationship and is the first step in setting you up with your dashboard account, where you can then go into our system, work with our editorial team to take ownership and control of your radio stations, and then go in, see the data that we have for your station and replace or modify any piece of it, and then work with us to do the dynamic integration that will literally drive all the analytics and metrics. So that's it for the lecture. I'm happy to take any questions or dig deeper into any topics.
Well, yeah, you kind of hit on one of the first questions I was going to ask is as somebody who just signed up for an account a couple of weeks ago and actually got it up and running, I can definitely testify because I actually fixed the logo that you guys had with one of my stations, and
Mhm.
within so I did that at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When I left at 5 o'clock, sure enough, the whole thing just kind of reset, and all of a sudden my new logo showed up, and it's been fine ever since.
That's a
So
great
I can
story.
definitely
Yeah,
say it works.
that's great. Are
So I
there,
guess, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to see if there were any other questions from the audience or if you had anything you want to dig into more detail.
Yeah. Well, one was what about the driver distraction point? I don't know if you had, if there was any safety concerns or any requirements that you had to conform to. Obviously, somebody staring at a screen while they're driving 70 miles an hour down the interstate's probably not a good thing.
Yeah. So while we certify the use of the content, we don't dictate the display. That's really up to the auto manufacturer to deal with their driver workload optimization and um, manage the presentation of content during different activities around the car, right? And what's amazing and I'll use a Mercedes as an example, there are 5 screens in the Mercedes S-Class. So how Mercedes has chosen to present data across those 5 displays is at their discretion. The driver, the center stack may be the most um, static of the displays, but yet the instrument cluster where the driver can glance at the visuals is probably more dynamic. And obviously, the rear seat displays are very, very dynamic. Um, but again, those decisions are made by the experts in the automotive industry. We are the content experts. We work with the radio stations. But again, the presentation of that is at the discretion of the automaker. I will say, I'll reiterate, I mentioned this earlier. The transition to level 4 autonomous vehicles is happening much faster than I ever expected. And the fact that the German government has already authorized and certified a couple mainstream vehicle brands to operate in a fully autonomous mode on the Autobahn this year is extremely telling. Um, and obviously, as that happens, that balance between the driver workload, driver distraction, and really full multimedia capabilities in the car is going to change. That balance is going to change. One of the other technologies that Xperi offers is a platform called AutoSense. It's our in-cabin passenger and driver monitoring system. And one of the things we have been working on with the industry is really measuring vehicle operation, vehicle performance. So looking at things like the lane departure warning system, look at the adaptive cruise control, looking at the eye gaze of the driver, and then making determinations about how that vehicle is being operated and what level of information would be appropriate and safe for our platform to present to the driver given those other parameters. So it's really optimizing the entire user experience, operating the vehicle and engaging with media and entertainment. But this stuff, if anyone was at CES, and you may hear this stuff is coming very rapidly into the car. It's being supported by legislation, like in Europe, for example. Occupancy monitoring is now required, primarily to make sure you don't leave your children or pets in the back seat of the car. But once those cameras are in the car for that purpose, the use cases are exploding. The car manufacturers are looking for a variety of novel ways to exploit technology in the car to create a better user experience.
So next question, which I think is a really good one. How do you, or are you planning on integrating with emergency alert systems?
Yes, I mean we have obviously we have a very robust emergency alert system within HD Radio, and there's no reason why this system can't deliver over the IP channel complementary emergency services. And we've already done a number of integrations in the States, in the US to do that. What we're looking now is how do those extend internationally? And we want to make sure we enable it, but we don't take on, there's no delicate way to say this, an undue liability for either Xperi or for the auto manufacturer. So yes, emergency alerts is definitely something that we focus on. And I think Jeff Detweiler, who is actively involved in the committee, can go into more detail on that.
And then this was one that I wanted to ask you as well. Now, the question is, does an individual FM broadcaster need any special encoders? And I believe the answer is no. But my
No.
question is there anything you had mentioned that you have monitoring stations that are parsing this data automatically in the different markets? Is there anything a station can do to transmit the data directly to you? Like now playing
Yes,
data, for instance.
and right. So we will monitor the streams of the station to get some basic information, but there's a latency there that we then have to measure to see if the data is actually usable. We would rather the radio station go online, sign up with us, take control of the data, and then do an integration with their playout system, or if they're using Q or Zeta or any of the now playing systems can feed data to us, and that will not only ensure accuracy and control by the broadcaster, but will give us the lowest latency to deliver that data on their behalf. So we highly recommend that radio stations do that.
And if you're transmitting HD, PSD, it pulls that automatically. So you're talking specifically for stations that aren't transmitting in HD, because I've noticed when with the stations that are transmitting in HD, it automatically defaults to that data, and it's much more consistent and shows the data. Whereas uh, if you're just sending the analog only and you're sending artist title over RDS, there is a bit of a lag. It does keep up, but
Mhm.
you're saying you send the data directly to you. There is a mechanism to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. And the receiver designs have been optimized to always present the data that can get there the quickest, that's the most reliable. So in the case of the Hyundai, you're going to see the IP delivered data for that station list immediately. But once you tune to a station and the radio now is connected with that signal, it will look, if it's analog at the RDS data, it will compare the RDS data versus the auto stage data. But it will leverage whatever data is available. So if you're sending album art, for example, over the air with HD radio, we will only send enhanced album art, the higher resolution image, if it's necessary. So we really try to optimize this so that the daily broadcaster content production activities remained the prominent and default source of what's presented to the driver. It's very much a balance here, and I think what makes us unique is we have that respect for the broadcast content, and we want to make sure that the user experience is in your control and not some third party.
Well, we're just about out of time, and I think this has been hugely informative. And one thing I just wanted to make sure that this is open to each and every broadcaster, commercial, non-commercial, and there's not any real strings attached to this. It's just you can sign up for an account and control what people see on this particular platform, which is already out in the wild. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Click on the link, review the license agreement. There's no hidden, caveats in there. It is very straightforward. Our business model supports this. We've engaged already directly with thousands, tens of thousands of radio stations around the world, and yeah, it's definitely out in the wild. And because of this new capability of over-the-air updates, we're actually seeing the vehicle adoption much, much faster than we did with HD radio. We had one night back in November where 190,000 cars were added to our system across 48 different countries. So it's coming very, very fast and furiously.
All right. Well, Joe D'Angelo from Xperi, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be posted later, so hopefully, and we'll include that link as well, so folks can get signed
Great.
up for it. So I appreciate you coming on today.
I appreciate the time and attention of the audience. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed. All right. Well, we'll turn things over to Chris Shear to wrap things up. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Take care.
And thank you, Kevin. This has been the SBE Web Extra, the SBE chapter of the web. We present it monthly. We hope you'll join us each time. We'll post the replay on our YouTube channel very soon. If you hold SBE certification, viewing the SBE Web Extra qualifies you for 1/2 point in category G, that's attendance. It's just like attending a local chapter meeting. And if you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the SBE Web Extra, please send it to us at webextra@sbe.org. And that does it for this installment. From the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals, thanks to our guest, Joe D'Angelo, and on behalf of Kevin Trueblood, we'll see you next month.